Step-by-Step Detailed Process on How to Create a Budget by James Fisher. Chapter 1. The first step in creating a budget is setting clear financial goals. Without goals, it's hard to know why you're budgeting or how to prioritize your spending. Your financial goals give you direction and a sense of purpose. They can range from short-term goals, like saving for a vacation, to long-term goals, like buying a home or preparing for retirement. Setting both types of goals is essential for a well-rounded budget. Let's take Sarah as an example. Sarah works as a teacher and has been thinking about taking a vacation to Europe. She estimates that the trip will cost $3,000. Rather than just hoping she'll have enough money, she decides to set a goal to save $250 each month for the next 12 months. This way, she can plan ahead and avoid any surprises. Setting a specific amount, such as $250, makes it easier for her to track her progress. By the time the year is over, Sarah will have saved enough for her vacation. Another example could be James, who has just started a new job. He's excited about the future, but knows that he needs to pay off his credit card debt, which totals $5,000. He sets a goal to pay off the debt in 2 years, which means he needs to pay about $210 every month. This goal gives him a clear target to aim for and helps him focus on paying down the debt rather than getting distracted by other expenses. Setting financial goals also involves considering your future needs. Think about what you want to achieve in the long run. For example, you might want to save for a down payment on a house or build an emergency fund for unexpected situations like medical bills or car repairs. These goals may take several years to reach, but they provide motivation to stick to your budget. It's important to make sure your goals are realistic. If you set a goal that is too ambitious, it might be discouraging when you can't meet it. Instead of aiming for $10,000 in savings in a year, when your income is $30,000, aim for smaller amounts that you can achieve. As your financial situation improves, you can adjust your goals to be more challenging. Goals should be specific, measurable, and attainable. In Sarah's case, her goal to save $250 per month for her vacation is specific and measurable. She knows exactly what she's working toward, and she can track her savings each month. James, on the other hand, has a goal of paying off his credit card debt by paying $210 per month. This is also measurable, and as he makes payments, he can see the balance decrease. Tracking progress is crucial because it allows you to adjust your strategy if necessary. If Sarah finds that $250 per month is too much, she can reduce the amount and extend her timeline, or if she finds extra cash, she can save more each month. Financial goals also need to be aligned with your values. If spending money on dining out is a priority for you, then you might set a goal to allocate a certain amount of money each month to that category. However, if saving for a down payment on a house is more important, you might limit your dining out expenses and allocate more to your house fund. Understanding your values helps you make decisions that align with what matters most to you. For instance, Mike, a single dad, values family time and saving for his children's education. His goal is to save $200 per month for their college fund. This goal aligns with his values because it ensures that his kids will have access to higher education in the future. To make room for this, Mike might cut back on other expenses, such as entertainment or takeout food, to prioritize the education fund. While setting your financial goals, it's also helpful to consider the timing. Some goals may take only a few months, while others may take years. For example, saving for a car down payment might take a year, but saving for a retirement fund could take decades. Knowing the time frame allows you to adjust your monthly savings amount and makes the goal feel more achievable. It also allows you to focus on one goal at a time. Trying to achieve too many goals simultaneously can make budgeting overwhelming. A good way to prioritize your goals is by asking yourself which ones are most urgent. If you have high-interest debt, such as credit card debt, paying that off might be the most urgent goal. Once that's cleared, you can focus on longer-term goals like retirement or saving for a home. In contrast, if you already have an emergency fund and no high-interest debt, you might prioritize saving for a vacation, or a home renovation project. It's important to recognize that goals can evolve. Over time, as your income grows or your expenses change, your financial goals might shift. For example, if you get a raise or a bonus at work, you might decide to allocate some of that extra income to savings or investments. Likewise, if you pay off a large debt, you can reassign that payment amount to another goal. Finally, remember to keep your goals flexible. Life is unpredictable, and sometimes you may need to adjust your goals. If an emergency happens, you might need to dip into your vacation fund to cover unexpected costs. If this happens, you can reset your goal and keep moving forward. The key is to stay focused on your financial well-being and adjust your goals as needed without losing sight of the bigger picture. Chapter 2. After setting your financial goals, the next step is to track your income. Understanding how much money you bring in each month is the foundation for building a budget. Without knowing your income, it's impossible to know how much you can spend or save. Whether you have a steady salary, multiple side gigs, or freelance work, tracking your income gives you a clear picture of what you have to work with. Let's take Tom as an example. Tom works full-time as an accountant and receives a regular salary of $3,200 per month after taxes. His income is stable, so it's easy for him to estimate how much he will earn each month. Tom's situation is straightforward, but not everyone has a fixed income. People with freelance work or side jobs may experience fluctuations in their monthly earnings. For instance, if Mary is a freelance graphic designer, her monthly income may vary depending on how many projects she takes on. Last month, she made $1,800, but this month, she's only expecting to earn $1,200. It's important for her to keep track of these fluctuations so she doesn't overspend. Tracking income involves not only recording your regular earnings, but also including any other sources of money you receive. For example, you might have rental income from a property, interest from savings accounts, or money from a side business. It's important to account for all sources of income because they all contribute to your financial picture. If Sarah rents out a room in her house and earns $500 a month, this is an additional income source she needs to track. By adding this to her regular salary, Sarah's total monthly income increases, and she can allocate more money towards savings or paying off debt. If you're unsure how much money you typically earn each month, a good starting point is to look at your bank statements for the past few months. Review any deposits you receive and calculate your average monthly income. For example, if your income fluctuates between $2,500 and $3,500 per month, you could calculate your average monthly income by adding the amounts together and dividing by the number of months. If the average is around $3,000, you can use that number as your monthly income for budgeting purposes. This method works well for people with variable incomes because it gives you a more accurate picture of what to expect. Knowing your monthly income is also crucial for deciding how much to allocate to each spending category in your budget. For example, if you know that you consistently earn $3,000 a month, you can confidently allocate portions of that income to cover fixed expenses like rent, utilities, and insurance. You'll also know how much money is left over for variable expenses, such as groceries, entertainment, and transportation. For people with a regular or seasonal income, it's helpful to have a buffer. Let's say Rachel works in construction, and her income varies depending on the amount of work available. During the summer, she earns $4,000 a month, but in the winter, her income drops to $2,000. To ensure that she can cover her expenses during the winter months, Rachel should save extra money during the summer. She can use this saved income to smooth out the fluctuations and avoid financial stress. A good rule of thumb is to set aside at least 10 to 20% of your income during months when you earn more to use during leaner months. Another important aspect of tracking your income is to account for taxes. If you work as a freelancer or a contractor, you're responsible for setting aside money to pay taxes. Unlike traditional employees who have taxes automatically deducted from their paycheck, freelancers need to calculate and save for their tax obligations. For example, if Rachel earns $3,000 from a freelance project, she should set aside a percentage of that, typically 20 to 30% for taxes. This ensures that when it's time to file taxes, she won't be caught off guard by a large bill. It's also helpful to separate your income from your spending. One way to do this is by using a separate bank account for your business income if you have side gigs or freelance work. By keeping business income in a different account, it becomes easier to track how much you earn for personal use versus business use. If you mix the two, it can become difficult to manage and budget effectively. For example, if you have a part-time job in addition to your full-time job, keeping the income from both in separate accounts makes it easier to track your overall earnings and avoid overspending. Tracking income isn't just about calculating how much money comes in each month. It's also about understanding the reliability and consistency of that income. For example, if you rely on commission-based work, your monthly earnings may vary greatly. It's important to track the number of sales or clients you get and the amount of money you earn from each transaction. This will help you predict future income more accurately and make better decisions about your budget. To keep track of your income, you can use a variety of tools, such as a spreadsheet or budgeting apps. Google Sheets or Excel can be simple and effective tools for manually tracking your income. You can create a column for each source of income and a row for each month. This way, you can quickly see how much money you earned in total for the month and how much you can allocate to your budget. If you prefer something more automated, you can use budgeting apps like Mint, Enab, or Personal Capital. These apps sync with your bank accounts and track your income and expenses automatically. They also categorize your spending, making it easier to manage your finances. Consistency is key when tracking your income. Make it a habit to review your income regularly. For example, you can set aside time each week or month to log your earnings and check that everything is in order. By staying on top of your income, you'll have a clearer picture of your finances, and it will be easier to make informed decisions about your budget. If your income fluctuates, you can adjust your spending accordingly and avoid overspending during high-income months. Finally, tracking your income is not just about knowing how much you earn, but also about understanding your financial situation. By regularly reviewing your income, you'll be able to make smarter choices, such as deciding whether to take on more work, reduce unnecessary expenses, or save for future goals. With a solid understanding of your income, you'll be better equipped to create a budget that works for you, no matter how much you earn. Chapter 3. Once you have a clear idea of your income, the next step is to understand your expenses. Knowing where your money goes each month is essential for creating a budget that works. Expenses can be divided into two main categories: fixed and variable. Fixed expenses stay the same each month, such as rent, mortgage payments, insurance, and car loans. Variable expenses change from month to month, like groceries, gas, entertainment, and dining out. Understanding both types of expenses helps you make better decisions and find areas where you can save. Take Emily as an example. She earns $3,500 per month and decided to track her spending to see where her money was going. After reviewing her bank statements, she realized that she spends $1,200 on rent, $200 on utilities, and $150 on car insurance every month. These are her fixed expenses because they don't change. However, she also found that her grocery spending varied between $300 and $450 each month, depending on how often she dined out or bought extra snacks. This is an example of a variable expense. Tracking your expenses requires looking at every dollar spent over the past few months. A good way to start is by collecting bank statements, credit card statements, and receipts. Write down all the categories where your money goes, such as housing, food, transportation, entertainment, and personal care. This helps you see patterns in your spending and identify any unnecessary expenses. For instance, if you notice that you spend $100 each month on coffee shop visits, you might decide to cut back by making coffee at home. Small changes like this can add up over time and free up more money for savings or other financial goals. It's also important to consider unexpected expenses that might arise. Some costs, such as medical bills, car repairs, or home maintenance, don't happen every month, but can have a significant impact on your budget when they do. For example, if Alex had to repair his car and it cost $600, he would need to adjust his budget for that month to cover the unexpected cost. This is why it's helpful to plan for irregular expenses by setting aside some money in an emergency fund. Some expenses may also be seasonal. For example, heating bills may be higher in the winter, while summer months might bring extra costs for vacations or outdoor activities. By looking at past expenses, you can anticipate these seasonal changes and plan ahead. If your electricity bill is higher in the winter, you can allocate extra money during those months and reduce spending in other areas to balance your budget. Many people are surprised when they see how much they actually spend. For example, David thought he spent around $150 per month on dining out, but after reviewing his expenses, he realized he was spending closer to $300. This awareness allows him to make changes and cut back if necessary. Once you see where your money is going, you can categorize expenses into needs and wants. Needs include essentials like rent, food, and utilities, while wants cover things like streaming subscriptions, gym memberships, and luxury items. By distinguishing between the two, you can prioritize your spending and avoid wasting money on things that don't align with your goals. To make tracking expenses easier, you can use a simple spreadsheet or budgeting apps. A spreadsheet allows you to list all your expenses and calculate totals at the end of each month. You can break it down by category and compare it to your income. Budgeting apps, such as Mint or Enab, automatically track expenses by linking to your bank account and categorizing transactions for you. This makes it easier to stay on top of your spending without manually writing everything down. Another helpful approach is the envelope system. This method involves setting aside cash for different categories of spending, such as groceries, entertainment, and transportation. Once the cash in an envelope runs out, you can't spend any more in that category for the month. This method helps you stay disciplined and avoid overspending. For example, if Lisa sets aside $400 for groceries in an envelope and realizes she only has $50 left by the middle of the month, she knows she needs to be more careful with her spending for the remaining weeks. Understanding your expenses also means being aware of recurring subscriptions and memberships. Many people sign up for services and forget about them, leading to unnecessary monthly charges. Reviewing your expenses regularly can help identify these recurring costs and determine if they are still needed. If you no longer use a streaming service or a gym membership, canceling it can free up extra money for other priorities. One way to stay in control of your expenses is to set spending limits for different categories. For example, if you find that you're spending too much on entertainment, you can set a monthly limit of $100 and track your spending to ensure you don't go over. This allows you to enjoy your money without feeling guilty or going off track. Staying aware of your expenses also helps you prepare for the future. For instance, if you know that you have annual expenses, such as property taxes or insurance premiums, you can plan ahead by setting aside a small amount each month rather than being caught off guard when the bill arrives. If Jenny has an annual insurance payment of $1,200, she can set aside $100 each month to cover it instead of struggling to pay the entire amount at once. Having a good understanding of your expenses puts you in control of your finances. It allows you to see where adjustments can be made, whether it's cutting back on non-essential spending, finding more affordable alternatives, or reallocating money towards savings goals. Once you have a clear picture of your spending habits, you can create a realistic budget that aligns with your financial goals and lifestyle. Chapter 4. Once you have a clear understanding of your expenses, the next step is to categorize them. This helps you see where your money is going and makes it easier to manage your spending. Categorizing expenses allows you to prioritize your needs, set limits for different areas, and identify where you might be overspending. Breaking down expenses into categories gives you a clearer picture of your financial habits and helps you stay on track with your budget. Let's take Mark as an example. Mark earns $4,000 per month and has a variety of expenses. When he first started tracking his spending, everything seemed scattered, making it hard to know how much he was spending on essentials versus non-essentials. To get organized, he divided his expenses into categories such as housing, food, transportation, entertainment, and savings. This breakdown helped him realize that he was spending almost $500 a month on dining out, which was much higher than he expected. By categorizing his spending, he was able to set a limit and redirect some of that money to more important areas, such as savings. One of the most important categories in any budget is housing. This typically includes rent or mortgage payments, property taxes, home insurance, and maintenance costs. Housing is often the largest expense for most people, so it's important to track it carefully. For example, Sarah pays $1,500 in rent each month, which accounts for a large portion of her budget. She also sets aside money for maintenance costs, such as repairs and upgrades, to avoid unexpected financial strain. Food is another key category that includes groceries, dining out, and snacks. Many people underestimate how much they spend on food, and without proper tracking, it's easy to overspend. Jake, for instance, used to grab takeout several times a week without realizing how quickly the costs added up. Once he categorized his food expenses, he saw that he was spending nearly $600 a month, much higher than he expected. By setting a budget for groceries and limiting his takeout to once a week, he was able to save money while still enjoying his favorite meals. Transportation expenses are also an important category to track. This includes car payments, fuel, insurance, public transportation costs, and maintenance. For example, Emily drives to work every day and spends $200 a month on gas, plus an additional $100 for insurance. She also sets aside a little each month for maintenance, like oil changes and tire replacements. Tracking these costs helps Emily ensure she's not caught off guard by unexpected repairs. Entertainment and leisure expenses can quickly add up if not monitored. This category includes things like movie tickets, streaming services, concerts, hobbies, and vacations. While these expenses are enjoyable, they should be kept within a reasonable limit to avoid overspending. For instance, Tom realized he was spending $80 a month on streaming services that he rarely used. By canceling some of them and keeping only the ones he enjoyed the most, he was able to put that money toward his savings goal. Utilities, such as electricity, water, internet, and phone bills, are another important category. These are regular expenses that are necessary for everyday life, but they can sometimes be reduced with small changes. For example, turning off lights when not in use, using energy-efficient appliances, and comparing service providers can help lower these costs. Lisa found that switching to a lower-cost phone plan saved her $30 a month without sacrificing the features she needed. Debt payments should also be a separate category in your budget. This includes credit card payments, student loans, and personal loans. Paying down debt is crucial to achieving financial stability. John, for example, has a student loan that requires a monthly payment of $400. By tracking it as a separate category, he ensures that he always prioritizes it and avoids falling behind on payments. Savings and investments should be another key category in your budget. This includes contributions to an emergency fund, retirement savings, and other long-term financial goals. Emma follows the rule of saving at least 20% of her income each month. She divides her savings into different goals, such as retirement, a vacation fund, and an emergency fund. By treating savings as a regular expense, she ensures that she's always setting aside money for the future. Health and personal care expenses are also important to track. This includes health insurance, medical bills, gym memberships, and personal care items like haircuts or skincare products. These expenses contribute to overall well-being, so it's important to budget for them properly. Mike includes his gym membership in his budget because staying healthy is a priority for him, but he also makes sure it fits within his overall financial plan. Gifts and donations should also be considered when categorizing expenses. Whether it's buying birthday presents for friends and family or contributing to charitable causes, these expenses can add up throughout the year. For example, Susan sets aside $50 each month for gifts so that she's financially prepared for holidays and special occasions without having to dip into her savings. Once you've categorized your expenses, it becomes easier to identify areas where you can cut back. Seeing everything laid out helps you recognize patterns and find opportunities to save. For instance, if entertainment expenses are taking up too much of your budget, you might choose to cut back on outings and find free or low-cost activities instead. If transportation costs are too high, carpooling or using public transit could be a way to save money. Setting limits for each category ensures that you don't overspend in any particular area. It also helps you stay disciplined and make conscious spending choices. If you allocate $200 per month for entertainment, you can enjoy going out without worrying about going over budget. This approach gives you the flexibility to enjoy life while staying financially responsible. It's important to review your expense categories regularly to make sure they reflect your current lifestyle and financial goals. Life changes, such as moving to a new city, starting a family, or switching jobs, can affect your spending habits. Adjusting your categories as needed ensures that your budget remains relevant and effective. Chapter 5. Once your expenses are categorized, the next step is to set spending limits for each category. Setting limits helps you control your spending, avoid debt, and ensure that your money is being used wisely. Without clear limits, it's easy to overspend in some areas and fall short in others. Establishing boundaries for your spending allows you to prioritize your financial goals while still enjoying the things that matter to you. Take David as an example. After tracking his expenses for a few months, he realized that he was spending too much on dining out and online shopping. He decided to set a monthly limit of $200 for dining out and $100 for shopping. By doing this, he ensured that he could still enjoy occasional meals at his favorite restaurants while keeping his spending under control. Setting limits allowed David to put more money toward his savings without feeling deprived. The best way to start setting spending limits is by reviewing past spending habits. Looking at bank statements from the last 3 to 6 months can give you a realistic idea of how much you typically spend in each category. For example, if Emily sees that she spends an average of $500 on groceries every month, she can set her limit at that amount or slightly lower if she wants to save more. Being realistic is important because setting limits that are too strict can make budgeting difficult to maintain. Fixed expenses like rent or mortgage payments, insurance, and loan payments usually don't change much, so these should be accounted for first. For instance, if Mark pays $1,200 in rent and $150 for car insurance each month, those amounts are non-negotiable and must be included in his budget. Once fixed expenses are covered, the remaining income can be divided among variable expenses like food, entertainment, and savings. One helpful method for setting spending limits is the 50/30/20 rule. This budgeting guideline suggests that 50% of your income should go toward needs like housing, groceries, and transportation, 30% toward wants such as entertainment and hobbies, and 20% toward savings or debt repayment. For example, if Sarah earns $3,000 per month, she could allocate $1,500 for essentials, $900 for discretionary spending, and $600 for savings. This method provides a balanced approach that allows for both financial responsibility and personal enjoyment. Adjusting spending limits based on personal priorities is important. If travel is a priority for you, you might choose to allocate more money to your vacation fund and cut back on entertainment. For example, Jake loves to travel, so he sets aside $300 per month for trips by reducing his spending on clothing and dining out. On the other hand, if someone values fitness, they might budget more for a gym membership and workout gear while reducing spending in other areas. Setting spending limits should reflect your lifestyle and financial goals. It's also helpful to build flexibility into your budget. Some months may have unexpected expenses, like car repairs or medical bills, so it's important to leave some room for adjustments. For instance, Lisa sets aside a small cushion of $100 each month in case any unexpected costs arise. This way, if she overspends in one category, She has extra funds to cover without dipping into her savings. To stick to spending limits, using cash for discretionary expenses can be effective. The envelope system is a popular method where cash is placed in separate envelopes for different spending categories. For example, if Tom sets a $200 limit for dining out, he withdraws that amount in cash and places it in an envelope. Once the cash is gone, he knows he can't spend any more on eating out that month. This physical limitation makes it easier to control spending and avoid overspending. Budgeting apps can also help with staying within spending limits. Apps like Mint or InNabTrack, spending in real time, and send alerts when you're approaching your budgeted limit in a specific category. For example, if Mike's grocery budget is $400 and he spends $350 by the middle of the month, the app will remind him to slow down his spending for the rest of the month. These tools make it easier to stay accountable and adjust spending as needed. Another important aspect of setting spending limits is tracking progress and making adjustments. Over time, you may find that certain categories need to be adjusted. For example, if Laura initially budgeted $100 for fuel but realizes she's spending $150 due to longer commutes, she can increase the fuel budget and cut back elsewhere. Regularly reviewing your budget helps ensure it stays relevant to your current needs and lifestyle. Setting spending limits also helps you avoid impulsive purchases. Many people struggle with impulse buying, especially when shopping online or during sales. Having a set spending limit acts as a guideline and encourages mindful spending. For example, if Jason is tempted to buy new electronics outside of his budget, reminding himself of his spending limits helps him reconsider and focus on his long-term goals instead. It's also important to communicate spending limits with family members or anyone sharing finances. If you have a partner, discussing budget limits ensures that both of you are on the same page and working toward the same goals. For example, if a couple sets a monthly limit of $300 for entertainment, they can plan their activities together and make informed decisions without disagreements. Open communication makes it easier to stick to the budget and achieve financial goals as a team. Setting spending limits is not about restricting yourself, but about having control over your finances. It allows you to enjoy life while ensuring that your financial future is secure. Whether it's dining out, shopping, or travel, having clear limits gives you the freedom to spend without guilt or worry. Being disciplined with spending helps you avoid debt, build savings, and stay on track with your goals. Chapter 6. Saving money is an important part of managing your finances. It helps you prepare for unexpected expenses, achieve your goals, and build financial security. Without a savings plan, it's easy to spend all your income and have nothing left for emergencies or future needs. A good savings plan gives you peace of mind and allows you to make progress toward important milestones like buying a home, taking a vacation, or retiring comfortably. Take Sarah, for example. She used to live paycheck to paycheck, spending whatever she earned without thinking about saving. One month, her car broke down and she didn't have enough money to cover the repairs. She had to rely on her credit card, which put her into debt. After this experience, Sarah decided to create a savings plan to avoid similar situations in the future. She started small by setting aside $50 from each paycheck and gradually increased the amount over time. Having a plan helped her feel more in control and prepare for unexpected events. The first step in creating a savings plan is to set clear goals. Knowing what you're saving for makes it easier to stay motivated and consistent. Goals can be short-term, like saving for a new phone or holiday gifts, or long-term, such as buying a house or retiring early. For example, James wants to save for a trip to Europe next year. He calculates that he needs $3,000, so he sets a goal to save $250 each month. Breaking the goal into smaller amounts makes it feel more achievable and helps him track his progress. After setting goals, the next step is to determine how much you can save each month. Reviewing your income and expenses will help you find areas where you can cut back and free up money for savings. For instance, Mark realized that by packing lunch instead of eating out every day, he could save $150 a month. By making small adjustments like this, he was able to build his savings without feeling deprived. One helpful approach to saving is the pay yourself first method. This means setting aside money for savings before spending on anything else. Treating savings like a fixed expense, similar to rent or bills, ensures that it becomes a priority. Emily follows this method by automatically transferring 10% of her paycheck into her savings account every month. By making it automatic, she avoids a temptation to spend the money and stays consistent with her savings goals. It's also important to choose the right place to keep your savings. A regular checking account may not be the best option because it's too easy to access and spend the money. Instead, consider using a separate savings account, a high-yield savings account, or even an investment account for long-term goals. For example, Mike keeps his emergency fund in a high-yield savings account where it earns interest while remaining easily accessible. For his retirement savings, he contributes to an investment account, which helps his money grow over time. Building an emergency fund should be a top priority in any savings plan. An emergency fund acts as a financial safety net for unexpected expenses like medical bills, car repairs, or job loss. Financial experts often recommend saving at least 3 to 6 months' worth of living expenses. For instance, Lisa's monthly expenses total $2,000, so she aims to save $6,000 in her emergency fund. This amount gives her peace of mind knowing that she can handle emergencies without relying on credit cards or loans. Another useful strategy is to save for specific goals separately. Using multiple savings accounts or budgeting apps that allow you to create buckets for different goals can help you stay organized. Tom, for example, has one account for his emergency fund, another for his vacation savings, and a third for a down payment on a house. Keeping his savings separate helps him track progress and avoid accidentally spending money meant for important goals. Cutting unnecessary expenses is another effective way to boost your savings. Take a look at your spending habits and identify areas where you can reduce costs. For example, canceling unused subscriptions, cooking meals at home, or finding free entertainment options can free up extra money for savings. Emma used to spend $80 a month on a gym membership she rarely used. She decided to cancel it and instead follow free workout videos at home, redirecting that money into her savings account. Staying consistent with savings is key to long-term success. Even if the amount you can save is small, regular contributions add up over time. Setting realistic goals and celebrating small milestones can keep you motivated. For instance, John started by saving just $20 per week. Over a year, that added up to over $1,000, which he used to pay for a weekend getaway. Seeing his progress encouraged him to keep going and increase his savings goal. It's also helpful to review and adjust your savings plan regularly. Life circumstances change, and so should your savings goals. For example, if you receive a raise at work, consider increasing your savings contributions instead of increasing spending. Likewise, if unexpected expenses arise, adjusting your budget temporarily can help you stay on track without feeling discouraged. Automating your savings can make the process easier and more effective. Most banks allow you to set up automatic transfers to your savings account on a regular basis. This way, you don't have to remember to transfer the money manually, and it reduces the temptation to spend it. For example, Mia set up an automatic transfer of $100 from her checking account to her savings account every payday. This simple step helped her stay consistent and build her savings effortlessly. Another way to increase savings is to find additional sources of income, whether it's taking on a part-time job, selling unused items, or starting a side hustle. Extra income can be a great way to boost savings. David, for example, started freelancing in his spare time and used the extra income to build his emergency fund faster. Finding creative ways to earn more money can help you reach your savings goals sooner. Chapter 7. Debt can be a major obstacle to financial stability, making it harder to save and achieve your goals. Whether it's credit card balances, student loans, or car payments, carrying debt can create stress and limit your financial freedom. Developing a plan to pay off debt helps you take control of your finances and free up money for more important things. Paying off debt requires discipline, but with the right strategies, it's possible to make steady progress and eventually become debt-free. Take Lisa, for example. She had accumulated $10,000 in credit card debt from years of overspending and unexpected expenses. The high interest rates made it difficult for her to pay off the balance, and she often felt overwhelmed by the growing amount. After realizing how much of her paycheck was going toward interest each month, she decided to create a debt repayment plan. By making a budget, cutting unnecessary spending, and focusing on one debt at a time, Lisa was able to pay off her credit cards within 2 years. The first step in paying off debt is understanding how much you owe. Gathering all debt-related information, such as the total balance, interest rate, and minimum payments, gives you a clear picture of the situation. For example, John listed his debts, including a $5,000 car loan at 6% interest, a $2,000 credit card balance at 18% interest, and a $15,000 student loan at 4% interest. Seeing everything laid out helped him decide where to focus his efforts first. Once you know your total debt, it's important to choose a repayment strategy. 2 popular methods are the snowball and avalanche methods. The snowball method focuses on paying off the smallest debts first while making minimum payments on larger debts. This approach provides quick wins and helps build motivation. For example, if Sarah has a $500 medical bill, a $1,200 credit card balance, and a $10,000 car loan, she would focus on paying off the medical bill first to gain momentum. The avalanche method, on the other hand, focuses on paying off debts with the highest interest rates first. This method saves money on interest over time and is often the most cost-effective strategy. For instance, if Jake has a credit card with a 20% interest rate and a student loan with a 5% interest rate, he would prioritize the credit card to reduce the overall cost of his debt. Choosing the right strategy depends on personal preference and what motivates you the most. Cutting expenses and increasing income are key steps in speeding up debt repayment. Reviewing your budget to find areas where you can reduce spending frees up extra money to put toward debt. For example, Mike realized he was spending $150 a month on streaming services and dining out. By cutting back, he redirected that money to his credit card payments. At the same time, finding ways to increase income, such as taking on freelance work or selling in used items, can provide extra cash to pay off debt faster. Consolidating debt can also be a useful option. Debt consolidation involves combining multiple debts into a single loan with a lower interest rate. This can simplify payments and reduce the total interest paid. For example, Emily had 3 different credit cards with high interest rates. She took out a personal loan with a lower rate to pay off the cards, which made it easier to manage her monthly payments and save on interest. However, it's important to avoid accumulating new debt after consolidation to prevent falling into the same cycle again. Another helpful strategy is negotiating lower interest rates with creditors. Many lenders are willing to lower interest rates or offer better repayment terms if you have a good payment history or if you're facing financial hardship. For instance, Tom called his credit card company and asked for a lower interest rate. After explaining his situation, the company reduced his rate from 18% to 12%, which helped him pay off his balance faster. It's always worth asking, as even a small reduction can make a big difference over time. Staying consistent with payments is crucial to becoming debt-free. Making at least a minimum payment on all debts every month avoids late fees and damage to your credit score. Setting up automatic payments can help ensure that bills are always paid on time. For example, Rachel set up auto pay for her student loans so she never missed a payment. This not only kept her on track, but also improved her credit score over time. Avoiding new debt while paying off existing balances is also important. It's easy to fall into the trap of using credit cards for everyday purchases, which can undo progress. Creating an emergency fund can help prevent the need to rely on credit when unexpected expenses arise. For example, after struggling with debt for years, James made it a rule to save at least $1,000 in an emergency fund before focusing on debt repayment. This way, he had a safety net for surprises like car repairs or medical bills. Celebrating milestones along the way can help maintain motivation. Paying off debt can take time, so acknowledging progress keeps you focused and encouraged. For example, Jessica celebrated when she paid off her first credit card by treating herself to a small, budget-friendly reward. Tracking progress visually, such as using a chart or app, can also provide motivation and show how far you've come. It's also important to learn from past mistakes to avoid future debt. Understanding what led to financial difficulties can help develop better habits moving forward. For instance, Robert realized that impulse spending was his biggest issue. By creating a spending plan and using cash for non-essential purchases, he was able to stay within his limits and avoid accumulating new debt. Paying off debt not only improves financial health, but also reduces stress and provides more opportunities for saving and investing. Once debt is eliminated, the money that was going toward payments can be redirected toward long-term goals, such as buying a home, investing for retirement, or building wealth. Chapter 8. An emergency fund is one of the most important financial tools you can have. It provides a safety net for unexpected expenses and helps you avoid relying on credit cards or loans when something goes wrong. Life is full of surprises, and without savings, a sudden medical bill, car repair, or job loss can quickly lead to financial stress. Having money set aside for emergencies gives you peace of mind and keeps your financial goals on track. Consider Sarah, who had no emergency fund when her car broke down unexpectedly. She had to borrow money from her credit card to cover the $1,200 repair bill, which added to her debt and took months to pay off. After that experience, she decided to build an emergency fund to avoid falling into the same situation again. Over time, she saved enough to handle unexpected expenses without relying on credit. The first step in building an emergency fund is deciding how much you need. A common recommendation is to save 3 to 6 months' worth of living expenses. This means if your monthly expenses are $2,000, your goal should be between $6,000 and $12,000. However, the right amount depends on your personal situation. For example, if you have a stable job with a steady income, 3 months might be enough. On the other hand, if you're self-employed or have a regular income, aiming for a larger fund can provide greater security. Starting small can make saving less overwhelming. Many people think they need to set aside large amounts all at once, but even saving a little at a time can add up. Take James, for example. He started by saving just $20 a week. After a year, he had over $1,000 saved, which was enough to cover minor emergencies. Building an emergency fund is about consistency rather than speed. Finding ways to free up money for savings is key to building your fund. Reviewing your budget can help identify areas where you can cut back. For example, Emma realized she was spending $50 a month on subscriptions she rarely used. By canceling them and directing that money to her emergency fund, she was able to save without feeling a big impact on her lifestyle. Cutting unnecessary expenses, eating out less, or shopping smarter can all help boost savings. Another effective strategy is automating your savings. Setting up an automatic transfer from your paycheck or bank account makes it easier to stay consistent. For instance, Mark set up a direct deposit of $100 into his emergency fund every payday. Since the money was automatically moved to his savings account, he didn't have to think about it and avoided the temptation to spend it elsewhere. Choosing the right place to keep your emergency fund is also important. It should be easily accessible but separate from your everyday spending money. A high-yield savings account can be a good option because it earns interest while keeping your money available when you need it. For example, Rachel keeps her emergency savings in an online bank account with a higher interest rate than her regular checking account. This way, she earns a little extra while ensuring the money is safe and available in case of an emergency. It's important to set clear savings goals to stay motivated. Breaking your goal into smaller milestones makes it easier to track progress and stay focused. For instance, instead of aiming to save $6,000 all at once, John set smaller goals of $500 at a time. Celebrating each milestone helped him stay committed to building his fund. Using windfalls like tax refunds, bonuses, or extra income can also help build an emergency fund quickly. Instead of spending unexpected money, consider putting part or all of it into savings. For example, when Lisa received a $500 bonus at work, she resisted the urge to splurge and instead put it directly into her emergency fund. This helped her reach her savings goal faster without making major changes to her budget. Staying disciplined and avoiding the temptation to dip into your emergency fund for non-emergencies is crucial. It's easy to justify using the money for things like vacations or new gadgets, but doing so defeats the purpose of having the fund. To stay on track, Alex set clear rules for when he could use his emergency fund, such as for medical bills, car repairs, or unexpected job loss. Having guidelines in place helped him protect his savings. Replenishing your emergency fund after using it is just as important as building it in the first place. If you need to withdraw money for an emergency, make a plan to rebuild the fund as soon as possible. For example, when Emily had to use $800 for a medical expense, she adjusted her budget to save an extra $100 a month until she replaced what she spent. This way, she ensured her emergency fund remained intact for future needs. Building an emergency fund requires patience, but the benefits are worth it. Knowing you have a financial cushion allows you to handle unexpected events with confidence and prevents you from falling into debt. It also provides flexibility, allowing you to make better decisions without feeling pressured by financial emergencies. Chapter 9. Irregular expenses can often catch people by surprise and throw their budget off track. These are expenses that don't happen every month but still need to be planned for, such as annual insurance premiums, holiday gifts, car maintenance, or medical bills. Without planning, these costs can feel overwhelming and force people to rely on credit cards or dip into their savings. Setting aside money for irregular expenses helps maintain financial stability and prevents unnecessary stress when these costs arise. Take Lisa, for example. She used to struggle every December when holiday expenses piled up. Each year, she found herself scrambling to come up with extra cash or relying on her credit card to cover gifts and travel costs. After a few years of this cycle, she realized that planning ahead could make things easier. She calculated how much she usually spent on holiday expenses and started setting aside a little money each month. By the time December arrived, she had enough saved to enjoy the holidays without financial stress. The first step in planning for irregular expenses is identifying them. Looking back at past spending can help you figure out what non-monthly expenses come up throughout the year. Common irregular expenses include car registration fees, property taxes, school supplies, home repairs, and vacations. For instance, Tom realized that his car insurance payment was due every 6 months, and his gym membership required an annual renewal. By writing down these expenses, he was able to see how much he needed to save and when. Once you identified irregular expenses, the next step is to estimate their costs and divide them into smaller, manageable amounts. Breaking large expenses into monthly savings goals makes it easier to handle. For example, if Sarah's annual car insurance costs $1,200, she divides it by 12 months and saves $100 each month. This way, when the bill is due, she already has the money set aside without needing to take it from her regular budget. Creating a separate savings fund specifically for irregular expenses can help keep things organized. Instead of lumping everything into a single account, having different savings categories for specific expenses allows better tracking. For example, Mark has a separate account for home repairs and another for vacations. Keeping the money separate helps him resist the temptation to spend it on other things and ensures it's available when needed. Automating savings for irregular expenses can make the process easier and more consistent. Setting up automatic transfers to different savings categories ensures that money is put aside regularly without needing to think about it. Emily, for example, set up an automatic transfer of $50 each payday into her car maintenance fund. Over time, the balance grew, and when she needed new tires, she had enough saved to cover the cost without any financial strain. Prioritizing irregular expenses based on urgency and importance is also helpful. Some expenses, like property taxes, are non-negotiable and need to be paid on time, while others, like vacations, can be adjusted based on your budget. For instance, John decided to focus on saving for his medical expenses first and put off his travel plans until he had enough money saved. This approach allowed him to meet essential needs without feeling overwhelmed by multiple financial goals. Tracking progress regularly helps ensure you're staying on top of your savings goals. Reviewing your irregular expense savings each month allows you to make adjustments if needed. For example, Rachel noticed she wasn't saving enough for home repairs, so she increased her monthly contribution to avoid falling short. Checking progress also helps identify any new expenses that might need to be added to the plan. It's important to stay flexible with your savings plan. Life changes and unexpected expenses may arise, so adjusting your savings categories as needed can help you stay prepared. If a sudden medical expense requires more funds, reallocating money from a less urgent category can provide a temporary solution. For example, when Mike had to pay for an unexpected dental procedure, he used part of his vacation fund and planned to rebuild it later. Avoiding the temptation to use money saved for irregular expenses on non-essentials is crucial. It's easy to see the money sitting in an account and think about spending it on something fun, but using it for its intended purpose ensures financial stability. For example, Jessica was tempted to dip into her car maintenance fund to buy concert tickets, but she reminded herself that the money was there for important expenses. Staying disciplined helped her avoid financial trouble when her car needed repairs. If unexpected or irregular expenses arise that weren't initially planned for, adjusting your budget and finding ways to cut back on discretionary spending can help. For instance, if a home repair costs more than expected, reducing dining out or entertainment spending for a few months can help cover the cost without dipping into savings. Being proactive and willing to make small sacrifices can keep your finances balanced. Over time, planning for irregular expenses becomes a habit and makes financial life smoother. Having money set aside for expected but infrequent costs reduces stress and allows you to enjoy life without constant financial worries. Whether it's saving for holiday gifts, insurance payments, or unexpected repairs, being prepared allows you to handle these expenses with confidence. Chapter 10. Saving for short-term goals is an important part of financial planning. These goals are things you want to achieve within the next few months or years, such as buying new furniture, taking a vacation, or building a small home improvement fund. Short-term goals help you stay focused and avoid relying on credit when you want or need something. Having money set aside for these goals allows you to enjoy life while staying financially responsible. Consider Emma, who wanted to take a vacation to Europe in a year. Instead of putting the entire trip on her credit card and dealing with debt later, she created a savings plan. She calculated the total cost of flights, hotels, and spending money and divided it by 12 months. By saving a set amount each month, she was able to pay for her trip in full and enjoy it without worrying about debt afterward. The first step in saving for short-term goals is identifying what you want to achieve and how much it will cost. Writing down your goals makes them clearer and easier to work toward. For example, Mike wanted to upgrade his laptop, which would cost $1,500. By setting a clear goal, he could break it down into smaller savings targets and track his progress over time. Knowing the exact amount needed helps create a realistic savings plan. Once you know your goal, setting a deadline gives you a time frame to work with. Whether you want to save for something in 6 months or 2 years, having a timeline helps you stay focused and motivated. For instance, Sarah wanted to buy a new couch within 6 months. She calculated that saving $200 per month would allow her to reach her goal without financial strain. Setting a deadline helped her stay on track and avoid unnecessary spending. Creating a separate savings account for short-term goals can help keep the money organized and prevent it from being spent on other things. Many banks offer free savings accounts, which can be labeled for specific purposes, such as vacation fund or new car fund. For example, John opened a separate account to save for his home renovation project. Keeping the money separate from his everyday spending account helped him resist the temptation to use it for other expenses. Automating savings is an effective way to stay consistent and make progress without thinking about it. Setting up an automatic transfer from your checking account to your short-term savings account ensures that money is saved before it can be spent elsewhere. Lisa, for example, set up a recurring transfer of $50 every week into her travel fund. Over time, the small amounts added up, and she reached her goal without feeling like she was making a big sacrifice. Finding ways to cut back on everyday spending can help speed up savings. Small changes, such as cooking at home instead of eating out, canceling unused subscriptions, or shopping during sales, can free up extra money. For instance, Rachel realized she was spending $100 a month on takeout. By cutting it down to $50 and putting the savings toward her goal, she was able to save faster without feeling deprived. Another way to boost savings for short-term goals is by using extra income, such as bonuses, tax refunds, or money from selling and used items. For example, Tom sold some old electronics he no longer used and put the money toward his goal of buying a new bicycle. Taking advantage of unexpected cash can help you reach your goals sooner without affecting your regular budget. Prioritizing short-term goals is important when you have multiple things you want to save for. Some goals may be more urgent than others, so deciding which ones to focus on first can help you stay organized. For example, if Karen wants to save for both a new phone and a weekend getaway, she may choose to save for the phone first if her current one is no longer working properly. Setting priorities helps you allocate your money effectively. Staying motivated while saving for short-term goals can be challenging, but tracking your progress helps maintain enthusiasm. Keeping a visual chart or using a budgeting app to monitor savings can provide a sense of accomplishment as you get closer to your goal. For example, Jake created a savings chart on his fridge where he filled in a square for every $100 he saved. Seeing his progress visually helped him stay excited about reaching his goal. Being flexible with your savings plan is important if unexpected expenses come up. Sometimes, you may need to adjust your savings timeline if an emergency arises. For instance, if an unexpected car repair takes priority, it's okay to temporarily slow down your savings for other goals and get back on track once the emergency is handled. Flexibility helps prevent frustration and keeps you focused on the bigger picture. Once you reach your goal, it's important to use the money as planned and avoid the temptation to spend it on something else. Sticking to your original plan ensures that you achieve what you set out to do. For example, when Melissa finally saved enough for her kitchen upgrade, she followed through with her plan and avoided using the money for other purchases. This discipline helped her enjoy the results of her hard work. Saving for short-term goals not only helps you achieve what you want, but also builds good financial habits. It teaches patience, discipline, and the value of planning ahead. Instead of relying on debt, you learn to prioritize what matters most and enjoy your accomplishments without financial stress. Chapter 12. Building an emergency fund is one of the most important steps in achieving financial security. Life is unpredictable, and unexpected expenses can arise at any time. Whether it's a sudden medical bill, car repair, or job loss, having money set aside for emergencies can prevent financial stress and keep you from going into debt. An emergency fund provides a safety net, allowing you to handle unexpected situations without relying on credit cards or loans. Take Jennifer, for example. She was living paycheck to paycheck when her car broke down unexpectedly. Without any savings, she had no choice but to put the repair on her credit card, which took months to pay off with interest. After that experience, she decided to start an emergency fund. Over time, She built up enough savings to cover future surprises without worrying about how to pay for them. The first step in building an emergency fund is deciding how much to save. A good starting point is to aim for at least 3 to 6 months' worth of living expenses. This amount can cover essential costs such as rent, groceries, and bills in case of an emergency. For example, if James' monthly expenses total $2,000, he would need to save between $6,000 and $12,000 to have a comfortable emergency fund. However, if saving that much feels overwhelming, starting with a smaller goal, such as $500 or $1,000, can provide a useful buffer for minor emergencies. Finding room in your budget to save for emergencies is essential. Setting aside even a small amount each month can add up over time. For instance, Sarah decided to put $50 from each paycheck into her emergency fund. Within a year, she had saved $1,200, which was enough to cover unexpected medical expenses that came up later. Treating savings like a regular bill helps prioritize it and makes it easier to stay consistent. Automating savings is a helpful way to ensure consistency. Setting up automatic transfers from your checking account to a separate savings account removes the temptation to spend the money. For example, Alex set up a monthly transfer of $100 to his emergency fund and soon stopped noticing the small deduction from his paycheck. Over time, the balance grew without requiring much effort. Choosing the right place to keep an emergency fund is important. It should be easily accessible in case of urgent needs, but separate enough to avoid using it for everyday spending. A high-yield savings account is a good option because it earns interest while keeping the money available when needed. For example, Rachel opened a separate savings account specifically for emergencies and avoided linking it to her debit card to prevent impulse spending. Cutting back on unnecessary expenses can help speed up the process of building an emergency fund. Simple changes, such as eating out less, canceling unused subscriptions, or buying generic brands, can free up extra cash to put towards savings. For example, Mike realized he was spending $150 a month on streaming services. By cutting back to just one service, he was able to redirect the savings into his emergency fund and reach his goal faster. Finding additional sources of income can also help build an emergency fund more quickly. Taking on a part-time job, freelancing, or selling unused items can provide extra cash to put aside. For example, Lisa started selling handmade crafts online and used the earnings to boost her emergency savings. Looking for creative ways to earn extra money can make saving easier without cutting too much from the regular budget. It's important to set clear goals for an emergency fund and track progress regularly. Breaking the savings goal into smaller milestones makes it feel more achievable and provides motivation along the way. For instance, Jake set a goal of saving $3,000 in 1 year. He broke it down into $250 per month and checked his progress each month to stay on track. Seeing progress can help maintain momentum and encourage continued savings. Avoiding the temptation to dip into the emergency fund for non-urgent expenses is crucial. It's easy to justify using the money for vacations or shopping, but keeping it reserved for true emergencies ensures it's available when needed most. For example, Tom was tempted to use his emergency fund to buy a new phone, but he reminded himself that the money was meant for unexpected situations, not luxury purchases. Staying disciplined helps maintain financial security. Once an emergency fund reaches a desired amount, it's important to maintain it by replenishing any money used. Emergencies happen, and using the fund is part of the plan, but replacing what was spent ensures continued financial protection. For example, when Emma had to use $800 from her emergency savings for a home repair, she adjusted her budget to rebuild the fund over the next few months. Building an emergency fund is not just about having money in the bank. It's about gaining peace of mind. Knowing that there is a financial cushion available provides a sense of security and allows you to handle life's uncertainties with confidence. Whether it's a medical emergency, a car repair, or an unexpected job loss, having savings ready can prevent financial setbacks and help stay on track with other financial goals. In conclusion, building a budget, paying off debt, and saving for emergencies are key steps to achieving financial stability. With clear goals, consistency, and discipline, anyone can take control of their finances, reduce stress, and work toward a secure future. Financial freedom is within reach when you plan and take action